doesn't seem to matter who your friends are online. We've all come across posts from people we're acquainted with who announce that they're taking a break from social media. Sometimes they cite negativity on social media as one of the reasons for that. It's somewhat ironic that the technology that so many of us have embraced may be having long-term negative impacts on our mental and even physical health. Joining us tonight with some thoughts on the matter, we are pleased to welcome Halifax-based psychologist Simon Sherry back to the program tonight. I want to thank you so much for coming in.
Good evening.
So how big a factor would you say technology is for the people who come to see you? How often does it come up?
Technology and its overuse is woven into the health and the mental health of Canadians. Whether it's children, adolescents, or adults, we're starting to see that excessive screen time and technological overuse is involved in problems like depression, obesity, distractibility, social interaction, early mortality, cancer, and a host of other difficulties.
Let's talk about some of these individually. I want to start with something, virtual conflict. Cyberbullying is what a lot of us call it. It seems far more acceptable and even easy now. And is that just because we would say things online that we wouldn't dream of saying to somebody in person?
So much of interaction these days is no longer conducted face-to-face. A lot of internet interaction is occurring in the guise of anonymity. And when people are anonymous, they can be bold and they can be hostile and they can be discourteous in ways that would never happen in an actual face-to-face interaction.
And we learn a lot as human beings during those face-to-face interactions that we're now missing out on, right?
Absolutely. There are subtleties and cues like body posture and nonverbal cues that are just not available to people when they're interacting on the internet. And in some ways, internet interactions are shallow and superficial, and people lose a sense of genuine connection to other humans.
I would suspect, and I don't think I'm way out of line here, I would suspect that more than a few friendships came to an end this week over the whole Don Cherry controversy. Do you think that's realistic?
That seems very possible. We live in a world where people can be excessively hostile in their internet interactions with other people.
And the kind of thing that would get you worked up enough online to write some hateful rant, again, you wouldn't necessarily say to somebody in person.
I think what's happening for a lot of Canadians, from the very young to the very old, is that screen time and technology are starting to displace other activities from our life. Formerly, greater emphasis was placed on real-time social interaction with actual humans in a genuine way. But increasingly, we find ourselves buried in screens, be that video games, social media, or other such technologies, and that's dehumanized a lot of our interactions.
And it's made us kind of uncomfortable with being alone and doing nothing, right? Like, this is almost an addiction. You're constantly reaching for that device, because you don't really want to be alone with your thoughts.
The screen time does promote sedentariness, and when you are physically inactive and sitting passively, that's linked to a range of major mental and physical health problems. In particular, it looks like excessive screen time has a robust link to depression and to obesity. We also know that excessive screen time leads to real problems with the duration and the quality of sleep. So you can see that excessive technology use and excessive screen time disrupts some major health promoting behaviors like physical activity and proper sleep.
So we're exhausted and getting less healthy by every minute we spend on these devices.
There have been recommendations about what we might use to curtail the amount of screen time we have. For example, the World Health Organization would suggest that children under 1 year would have no screen time. Children between the ages of 1 and 5 might limit themselves to an hour or less of screen time. And I think in some ways these suggestions are helpful, But we also have to consider the nuances surrounding screen time. For example, if you're sitting and co-viewing an educational program with your child and discussing it and using it as a vehicle for your child's development,
Right.
I wouldn't say that that's a harmful form of screen time.
But there is a flip side to that, because some experts have talked about the dangers of toxic content. This is the endless parade of bad news that stream across our devices. A lot of times these come from well-meaning people who want to raise awareness about certain issues, but the overall effect can be quite toxic on our mental health.
Absolutely. There's a lot of digital distortion that comes from screen time, and it splits among extremes. On the one hand, you can have screen time content that's too perfectionistic, glossy and unrealistic images that don't reflect lived reality.
Right.
On the other hand, there can be an excess of doom and gloom where dark and negative topics are discussed and dwelled upon.
And of course, the internet is very good at wasting our time. We've all been there. You get caught in the, I don't know, the YouTube vortex or something, and you know, 9 hours later, you're still watching these videos when you should have done the dishes that would have taken 15 minutes.
Absolutely. We know that the internet and screen time is a thief. It robs from us a range of experiences, including the ability to get up, be physically active, and engage in our world in a structured, purposeful way. And you can see that when screen time starts to dominate your day-to-day existence, you start to be at risk for a range of physical and mental health problems.
How do we get around this? So short of throwing all of our devices away and going to live in the woods, you know, there has to be a better way here.
Absolutely. If, for example, you're a parent who's looking to change around your child's technological overuse or excessive screen time, start with yourself. Be the change you want to see in your child. Recognize that you are a model, so don't model excessive screen use to your child.
Be aware, first of all, that you might be on the phone too much anyway.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In addition, start to set some limits, some realistic limits, recognizing that some screen time can be educational or even facilitate activity, but that a lot of screen time is time wasted. It's okay as a parent of a child or an adolescent to draw a limit and to say enough's enough and to place some restrictions on screen time. Beyond having to implement those restrictions yourself, you can also draw upon various technologies that help limit or restrict screen time.
Any advice for someone who might be feeling anxious even at the very notion of limiting their screen time?
Yes, that's very much a problem in this day and age where we're fused with our phones. I think you have to recognize the impact that your screen time has on you. And if you find that it's displacing important things from your life, or you find when you come out of that internet rabbit hole that you're missing valuable activities or that your mood is lower than when you started, I think it may be time to look at that overuse.
That's a red flag right there.
Absolutely.
All right, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight, Doctor. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Simon Sherry, a Halifax-based psychologist, joining us tonight with some thoughts on how the overuse of technology may be harming our mental and even physical health. Put the phone down once in a while. Stay with us. Be right back.